Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchtime series with me, Kevin Britz, leading the charge with insights, information, and ultimately effective results. Today's guest joining me on our leadership and coaching segment is an award-winning South African actress and internationally accredited award-winning African Excellence Award Life Coach of the year 2024, an NLP practitioner, my favorite, and hypnotherapist. She has 30 years of experience in acting, voice, and artistry, and 7 years as a lecturer at a prestigious television and film university. Please welcome Heidi Mollentze. Heidi, hello.
Hello. You make me sound good.
I'm trying. I'm going to make sure it rolls off the tongue there.
There we go. Hello. It's such a joy to be here.
Thank you for being here. Yes, we have had the privilege of recently being on air together with the wonderful voice of Steve, and you were there with me doing my thing in studio, and hopefully we do a whole bunch of that more.
Please put it out in the universe.
Yes, no, we need more of it, and we love Steve and smart Steve now, and we need more conversations like that. But Heidi, so when we met, it was in the studio, and what was lovely about that is we immediately have that bond. I mean, obviously, voice is something that we both do. You're a very well-known actress in South Africa, in any case, but just having that extra bit of coaching background, which you and I now share as well, was such a connection that we connected on. And when we did have this conversation, it was so interesting to hear how you sort of juggle that. But please, won't you just start off with telling us, I mean, obviously everybody knows who you are, but for those who don't, but also specifically around the coaching and the sort of expert position you hold in communication and the work that you do around that. Give us some background of who you are.
Yes. Well, my career started about 30 years ago, and I've always been, performing is something that's, I think you're born with it. It's in your DNA, really. And if you don't do it, you become kind of sick inside. It's like this thing that's in you that doesn't, that wants to live, but it doesn't have life if you suppress it. So I was very privileged to be able to then study acting and then come and do my thing. I'm also very grateful that I can do TV, I can do film, I can do stage, I can do radio acting, and then the voice work. But then there's also this thing about, and this might sound cliche, but helping people, uplifting, supporting, encouraging, and empowering. That's a big thing. That's also inside of a person. And you know this one very well. It's inside of you. And if you don't do that, then you also grow ill inside. And that hunger was always there. And people used to say, oh, go study psychology. That's going to help you get an outlet. But I never felt that I wanted to do that. I wanted to do more practical hands-on things. And that's where the life coaching, one day, some years ago, I realized, hang on, I can do both things that make me tick. And that's when I ventured into this world of life coaching and the NLP, which is also my favorite. It's just so amazing how we were designed and how we are hardwired and how we actually all are the same in the end in that respect. So it really gives me a great kick. And then I was thinking, people are now going to think I'm crazy. I'm doing my acting life on the one side, and I'm doing my life coaching life on the other side, and my NLP and my hypnotherapy. How do I explain how these things merge in my mind? what gives me the authority to jump from one to the other? What gives me that right? Where do I link the two? And then I realized one fine day that life is like acting and acting is like life. What happens when we do a character, when we perform a character? It's not just going there and saying your lines and emoting. That would be very fake. That would be a very D-grade acting. What we do is we see the pictures of the character in our mind. We say the words to ourselves that the character will say to themselves. So you are not pretending to be the character and putting things on from the outside. You are doing it from the inside. You are being the character. It's not about putting it on, it's about being. You become the character. And the only way that you can do that is by seeing the character's pictures in your head and saying the words to yourself that the character says to themselves, because we all do that. We all speak to ourselves. We all see pictures in our head, whether we are aware of it or not. And then those pictures and those words, that the thoughts that we have in our heads, they create our feelings. That's how feelings originate. That's where we get them from. It's not if there's something, if there's a terrible event that happens, that it's the event that makes you sad. It is what you think about the event, what pictures you make in your head about the event, the words that you say to yourself about the event that evokes these emotions. And once you have these emotions, they determine the way that you behave. They determine the way, these emotions, that you show up in a room, when you are with friends, when you are at work, but also how you show up for yourself. Yeah. And that's a very important thing. And then how you show up determines your whole world. You create your world, and it all starts here.
Now, one of the beautiful things that we shared when we did have this conversation was, also considering that when you work in an environment, so you bring this knowledge around, how your brain works and how emotions impact your results, but also not to forget the very many years you've had as, an actress, someone who's on stage, behind the camera, in front of the camera, all of these different scenarios, and taking that and using these two expert positions and molding that and into a wonderful communication specialist, right? Because that's what really stood out about how you could leverage these two areas, because people often think that they're very disconnected, but yet they're not. How you communicate starts with you, starts with what's in your head, what's that emotion behind what it is you're communicating. Yes. So I love the fact that you've brought these two worlds together to that degree. Even with my career, that's, someone said to me, well, you've been singing all your life. Why don't you just teach people what you know? And it's like, but I don't know what I like. What do I know? And my coach said, well, you can use your voice, right? Yeah. And it's like, I can, right? And that's where I started working, in a corporate environment around teaching people how to speak over the phone, like literally in call centers.
Yes.
Right? So that combination of my experience connected to now this NLP thing and how you could actually create content and information to sort of empower people to that degree. But don't you want to just touch around a little bit around that the communication position you work through in a corporate setting?
Yes. Now the thing is, what is communication? It's connection. So your connection with people and to people is only as strong as your communication skills are. And now that brings me right back to everything relates back to the pictures you see in your head and the words that you say to yourself. If you are having not optimal, less than needs be thoughts going on here, things that you say to yourself, things that you see to yourself, if you're coming from a point of pessimism, negativity, the dread, you're having a terrible time at home and you can't get rid of all those images and those thoughts, and you go to your job, that is going to make you show up, like I spoke about earlier, in a certain way. And then that is exactly what people are going to give you right back. If you show up in a room in a certain way, you can be sure that the people in the room will mirror that, whether they know it or not. So insofar as the communication skills are concerned, I always start with a session about the pictures and the words in our heads. Because if we are not focusing on the individual in a group, in a corporate setting, we are not going to get anywhere. A group is made up of individuals, and I need to speak to each individual's heart and to make it personal to each person, so that that person can then start becoming aware and mindful of what is it that I'm doing. And in that way, the person is able to relate better, not only to colleagues and staff and the work environment in that area of communication, but also that person goes home and does better there at home and in their community. And now this person doesn't know why, but things are going better for me. My life is a little bit easier. It's not such a mountain to climb every time there's a minor confrontation at work. I know how to voice my feelings. I'm no longer scared of my feelings because I understand how they originated. We get so overwhelmed at times with, I'm feeling awful. I'm so fearful of my colleague. My colleague is horrible, or my boss. I'm just not gelling with this person. I feel out of place, and that leads to all kinds of pictures and words that we say, and that perpetuates the feeling, and that makes you show up in a way that is way less than desirable. And then you just complete that cycle. It's just going on and on and on and on. So now I'm uplifting people. I'm taking that out of that spiral and saying, okay, let's look at ourselves from an outside perspective. And then we internalize, and then we go right back and we give solid foundations. There are tips and tools and tricks and techniques that follow this, that we can practice this thing, these communication skills, but nothing is going to stick. And I pride myself on having long-lasting, lifelong results, positive results, because once you start, and this is how it sticks, it has to start from here. And as soon as people understand the pathway of behavior, here, feelings, and then out in the way that I show up, in the way that I behave, as soon as people see that, they can help themselves. And as soon as we practice these things, and I give people tools and techniques to do, and we practice in group sessions, and we practice one-on-one, and we practice two small groups, large groups, doesn't matter, presentations, whatever, everything becomes easier. Your life is easier once you understand that communication is everything. Communication is our relationships, and our relationships is our entire life. Our entire life is made up of relationships. whether it's with people on the street. You have to speak to people. You have to. That's life. Even if you're a hermit, you're sometimes going to have to speak to people.
Yeah, one of the things that I always share especially when I deal with communication skills is, and it sort of cements exactly what you're saying, is I always share the well-known anecdote that, you are 100% responsible for the energy that you bring to this moment. And very often when people hear it, they don't necessarily relate to it and kind of go, yeah, we know. But when you sit down and you kind of go, okay, if I am 100% responsible for the energy that I'm bringing into this moment right now, what does that mean? What does that look like? And what is my intention, right? And suddenly, it's almost like you've got this imaginary spotlight on how you show up.
Yes.
And I mean, people often go, and I don't know if you've seen this, but people often go, yeah, but I've been like this all my life. I'm 45 years old. I'm 50 years old. I've always been like that. Yes. And then I say, well, maybe it's time to change. Maybe stop, because maybe you're giving off the wrong vibes, and maybe you should be a little bit more accountable to how you show up.
Yes.
And when I
absolutely agree. And people are so sometimes very scared of change, even if it's a good change, because change is uncomfortable, at least at the beginning. And I find that if people are not made aware, they'd rather sit and have a difficult, less than optimal life, they make the change and thrive, know. But you also said a very important word, that the intent, intention. And that's another acting thing. We always speak of purpose and intent. So if you enter the scene while you are busy acting and you entering the scene, or they go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and there's your camera, or you enter on that stage, or you open your mouth at a radio drama, you need to know, what is my purpose for being here and what is my intention. And those are 2 life principles I also found that we need to talk about. If you enter a room, do you know what you're doing there? What are you there for? What is my purpose? What is my purpose? And we all need to know that we have a purpose for any situation, and especially now that we're speaking about corporate and work situations, especially there, it's very dangerous to hover around not knowing what your purpose is. Find out. And what is my intention with going to this meeting? You must have an intention. There must be a purpose and an intention behind this, because people pick up if you are a floater and you don't have something in mind that needs to happen. You need to set those parameters, not only for other people, but for yourself. You will have a very difficult, dull, stuck life if you can't find your purpose and intent with all the different scenarios, all the different places that you visit every day. You need to know. Like I said, especially at work, you open that door. When you arrive, what am I doing here? What is my purpose? What is my intention? They're not the same.
Absolutely. So one of the things I want to touch just before, so we've got some just time to unpack that, is when we initially had our conversations, and I think purpose and intention, tie into it beautifully. We spoke about fear and anxiety. And those are so wonderfully linked, our brains doing us a favor, trying to do us a favor by holding on to that. And very often, fear and anxiety, especially in a communicational setting in front of a camera, on a podcast like this, fear and anxiety are quite debilitating, right? So, I mean, from that perspective, you work with fear and anxiety quite specifically. Tell us a little bit about that. And if you do have a bit of an anecdote for us, what is that?
Yes. Oh my goodness. And it's so applicable to everybody. If you think little kids at school, children at school, students, adults, workplace, life. I mean, we need to be able to put it on our CV. I live in Johannesburg, South Africa. That is an accomplishment. So fear and anxiety are natural responses to perceived threats. Please note, perceived. It might not even be a threat, not even a real threat. So what your mind thinks is a danger then manifests in fear or anxiety. So one of three things, or actually four things these days happen. You fight the feeling or the perceived threat. You freeze, you're kind of paralyzed, you don't know what to do, or you flee, fight, flight, freeze. You flee, you run away from it, you remove yourself from it. And the other one is fawn. We have the fawn, perceived threat of, let's say, a loved one that is not treating you well. Some people tend to then fawn to that person. So why is that? Because we still have our primitive minds from when we lived in caves and in tribes, right? Like in the ancient times, we had very real threats there in the form of natural events. Like they couldn't perhaps have the best shelter against storms and earthquakes and things like that. And then also wild animals. Because they had to hunt for food, people hunted in packs and groups, because there's no way that you could look after yourself. The group thing was very big then. And that incidentally is why people are so afraid of rejection, because in those times, if you were rejected, if you were expelled from the group, that meant certain death, because there was no way that you would be able to catch your own food, keep yourself warm. People needed each other to do that for each other and with each other. If a little child would wander off, they would be caught by a wild animal, or they would have to eat berries that are perhaps poisonous and die. So that's why people are afraid of rejection. And these days, now that we don't live in tribes and caves anymore, which I don't know, fortunately, unfortunately, you have a squabble with your boyfriend, girlfriend, significant other, or whatever, and they leave you, and you feel like you're gonna die, literally, because your mind thinks you are gonna die. To your mind, your primitive mind perceives that as, I'm being rejected, I'm being kicked out of my tribe, out of my group, away from this person that I relied on, and I am now going to die, because we are not designed to live on our own. So the thing with modern life is that we don't have wild animals running around threatening to catch us, and we know what to do in when there are adverse weather conditions. Our threats are way more difficult to handle, in that you can't necessarily fight the bad email that came in. You can freeze and be paralyzed, I'm sure, but our threats are much unseen these days. It's not so real and so in your face, but it's all over. We have so many more things that threaten to your minds, to your subconscious mind, your very existence. Having a terrible day at work might make you feel rejected. You have that as a threat and you react to it. Your body will just react to it. You don't even have to think about it, right? Your body will react to it. And that's what I want to focus on, or what I do focus on in my fear and anxiety programs. And it's all, again, pictures in your head, words that you say to yourself. Are you saying to yourself, oh, I was retrenched. Nobody wants me. See, my mother was right. I'm pathetic. I'm miserable. I knew I couldn't do it. Like, what are you saying to yourself? If you are having financial troubles, I mean, everybody understands that. Over the age of 18, I'm sure you understand having an issue with money at some point in your life. And isn't that just the worst? What do you do? What do you do if you become paralyzed and you do nothing? Things are going to get worse. You can't run away. You can't fight it. How do you fight this? So it's really, now what happens? I have fear and anxiety. My body is physically reacting to this because it cannot do anything else. The breathing gets shallow. You can't sleep at night. Everything just becomes a vicious cycle. So that was a very long-winded answer.
No, and I love it. And, you know, thank you for unpacking it to that degree. But now you mentioned that you have this program that you've got anxiety and fear 101 program that you do with people. Tell us about what, if we sign up for that, join up with that, and obviously we'll share all that information. But what can we expect from that? And, what are some of those tidbits that we can take away from, like, why we should go and check it out?
Right. So, surprise, surprise, I start with the pictures you see in your head and the words that you say to yourself. So we need to get that down. We need to understand that. We need to become aware of it, right? So I'm doing a whole section on that. And then for our viewers who want to venture a little bit more into the hypnosis side, what I do is, for people who want to, some people don't like it, I do a visualization, a guided visualization for those people who are averse to hypno. Not that the hypno is what you see on stage. There's nobody standing with a pocket watch going, dun, 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 give me a Ferrari. So the hypno helps to understand where this comes from in your past. Because we all have stuff, and it's not going to go away unless you deal with it. So we can't change the past. We can certainly change the future if we know what happened in the past. And the hypno exercise helps a lot for that. So then I give beautiful tips and behavioral techniques and things, CBT, that we can do with that. And then we talk about making the familiar unfamiliar. And this is linking back to what we said to each other earlier. Some people are so comfortable and familiar with their surroundings. They're not happy. They feel stuck. In fact, they could be miserable, but it's familiar to them and they stay. So certain things, now let's take a very silly example. If I have a slice of carrot cake for breakfast, which I would happily do because I love it that much, but I don't. I check what I eat for breakfast. I know that after a while, having carrot cake for breakfast will make me feel ill. I will be very hungry at 10 o'clock in the morning because my blood sugar has dropped. My skin might not be great. I will be sluggish, brain fog, and so on. But I keep doing it because it's so nice and I'm used to it. And change is very hard. You can't fathom your life. Like it's when you quit smoking as well. I quit smoking, I quit drinking, and I quit vaping. I quit all of that about 16 years ago. I could never imagine my life without a drink. I was a severe alcoholic. It was horrendous. It was what you see in the movies times 10. And when you're there, you feel so awful. You feel so horrendous, but it's what you know. And you think you need it to continue living. And at that stage, I did, right? But then comes the change. I had to make the familiar thing unfamiliar. And there are ways to do it. Tips, tricks, techniques. there are certainly ways to do it.
And that is also, that just ties in, as you mentioned now, you know, having gone through the trenches like you have, that just perpetuates anxiety and fear, and the fear to be seen and the fear to be known, and you know what that anxiety then starts. So it becomes not only the addiction that you struggle with, but the identity that you struggle with, and then you have all this emotional trauma that you're not dealing with, you know. And on this side, and the only time that does change is when you choose to change.
When you choose, and change is a conscious decision. It starts with a conscious decision. You can just make the decision. You have to make the decision. Otherwise, nothing is, that beautiful saying, nothing changes unless you do. That's just how it is. Then the other side of the coin is some people need to make the unfamiliar familiar. What is unfamiliar to me? I have a dear friend, a beautiful person who really did not experience love growing up. It was a terrible home situation. And later on, when things started getting better in adult life, unfortunately, it was the only time where he was in late teens and early 20s when things started shaping. But that person could not understand what it is to be loved, or to be cared for, or even to be asked, how are you? He could not, because he's much better now, he could not answer that question. You couldn't give him a hug and say, hi, so good to see you, because it wasn't used to be. It was totally unfamiliar to him. Now, if there's one thing, for heaven's sake, that you need to make familiar, it's being loved. And certain things just need to happen for the unfamiliar to become familiar to you as well. And I have beautiful ideas and tips and tricks for that as well. Everything is a process. Everything is a process. So we go through this process. I take your hand and I walk you through the process. Then we have some other things that are very important. And that is, for instance, your time. How do you manage your time? Anxiety and fear so often starts and is perpetuated by you not managing your time well. Why? Because you're paralyzed. You're so freaked out by everything that you just don't know. Procrastination. You know how we procrastinate because of fear. Procrastination is just a fear response. And then what happens is you're just putting yourself even further back. So we do time management techniques. Habit changes. There's that word again, changes. Habits need to change. What am I doing that is making me not live optimally, is impeding me that I don't even know? And I'm taking this example, smoking. Do you have any idea how smoking is holding your brain captive? It is literally taking space in your brain, apart from destroying you physically. And I can say this, you need to quit. I smoked 30 cigarettes a day for 24 years. 24 freaking years I did that. And it's not the physical thing that was such a big change for me, the joy that I felt for feeling better. It was the freedom. Right? So the certain habits will have to change and adapt, and there are ways of doing it. I love James Clear's work. So I'm a big fan of Atomic Habits, and we work a lot with what he has in that book, and we do our steps and we make our plans. And then planning for the future. And now this is going to sound really boring, but goal setting. and I'm not just saying SMART goals here. How do you do this? Things are overwhelming. Chunking down, making smaller goals, smaller little steps. We actually, all people know all of this stuff. It's just that I put it into a format for you, and I guide you through the process, because sometimes we just need somebody to tell me what to do next and to hold my hand and to say, oh, okay, so this didn't go like that. So we're going to do this now. So I've got that little blueprint worked out, and it works so beautifully. I think a big thing about the fear and anxiety program is that people don't feel alone, because fear and anxiety can be very isolating. And as soon as we feel isolated, nobody understands, and I'm putting this smile on my face every day, but I'm dying inside. I don't know how I'm ever going to do this, how I can't. All of those things make us disconnected from others. And as soon as that happens, we start pining away. And that is a very sad thing, because I firmly believe we were not put on this earth to just merely get by. That was not the point. That Absolutely. Is we made it like that. Human beings, we made that world for us to like, oh, it has to be a suffering. It has to be a suffering. And having that said, I have my own issues. You have problems. I have problems. We all have problems. But the bottom line is, and this gives people hope, and this gives people the encouragement they need. If I discuss, and when I discuss with you why it is that you are supposed to thrive. You have a place in this universe. You have a place in this world. You are walking the soil of this earth. You are here for a reason. Find out what that purpose is and walk in it. You are not an accident.
I love that. And I think as you speak, just listening to your background and the things that you've conquered and overcome. I remember when I started my NLP practitioner process, I was 26 years old and severely depressed, and by then I'd seen the 7th psychologist and was clinically sort of told that I was clinically depressed, and I decided, nope, it's not who I am. But what's beautiful, looking at, if anyone listening out there today kind of goes, I'm not sure if this NLP thing is for me or if it works. Like you and I both have very specifically overcome, treacherous times in our lives.
Yes.
So I just want to recap. So a bit of CBT, changing habits, checking time, visualization, goal setting, everything that sort of helps hold some space for people who are going through some anxiety and fear. So you definitely need to go and check out that question. Heidi, so to end of today, before we tell people where they can get hold of you, we're going to do the quick 3 with Heidi, and quick 3 questions on what do people not know about you? What's the first thing that comes to mind? What do they not know about you that they need to know?
I am a coffee snob. Love, it must be good coffee. Good coffee. No bad. Life is too short for bad coffee.
Okay, fantastic. What is your biggest fear?
Oh, wow. Yeah. Interesting question, having spoken about everything that we did. I want to say that my nearest and dearest will not be okay. That is for me my biggest fear. Yeah.
What is, and if you had to give someone one of your best life lessons someone's ever shared with you, what is the best, quickest one you can think of now? I know it's spur of the moment. What's your best life lesson?
How you do anything is how you do everything.
Yes, I love it. I 100% agree. Okay, cool. So spoken about your wonderful program that you've got, around anxiety and fear 101 program. It packs out and holds some really good space for anyone that wants to do it. Communication specialist, has 30 years experience in acting, voice artistry, and even with the lecturing in communication. But also, where can people get a hold of you? What's the quickest way for them to get a hold of you? And I know that you also got a 4-minute audio recording guided eliminating unwanted emotional instantly. So we'll put that in the Dropbox below. So everyone go and check that out. A nice audio recording that you can go listen to. So it's the unwanted emotional eliminator, which is beautiful.
Eliminator, yes, it's a gift. Go do it. It's what you're going to, if you have anxiety or fear at a specific, you just listen to that and it will bring you instant relief. And you can do that as many times as you want with any kind of negative emotion that you may be feeling.
Fantastic. And the last question, where do we get a hold of you? What's the website?
Yes, please, www.heidimollentze.com. Sorry, that surname is a wild one. So please check out the spelling.
We'll put that link. Just click on it, and you can go chat to Heidi. Heidi Mollentze, thank you so much.
And all YouTubes and all everywhere as Heidi Mollentze. Please come visit me, engage with me. I'm happy to hear you. I'm happy to just check in with you whenever, for whatever reason.
Thank you for being here. Thanks for being on the show. And thank you for sharing some insights around your program and what you do now. And I will definitely be seeing you soon. And I need to come chat to you about being on camera. So.
Can't wait.
Guys, please remember to like and share. It's the Lunchtime series on all your major podcast channels and YouTube. From me and my wonderful guest, Heidi, have a fantastic day. Heidi, thanks. Chat to you soon. Cheers for now.
Thank you. Cheers.